Before I start, pause whatever you're doing right now because what I'm about to tell you happened inside my own house, orchestrated by the people who were supposed to love me most, and it took one 17-hour work shift, one secret group chat, and one very quiet Saturday morning for me to blow the whole thing wide open. Without raising my voice once. If you've ever been the peacekeeper in a family that mistook your patience for weakness, this one's for you. Stay with me until the end because the way this finished is something I want you to see with your own eyes. And real quick, drop a comment right now telling me what time it is and what city you're watching from. I read every single one of them, and tonight I want to know exactly who's out here with me. My name is Sarah Callahan. I'm 34 years old and I work 13-hour overnight shifts as a respiratory therapist at Mercy Cross Medical Center in Austin, Texas. People stop breathing in front of me for a living, and my whole job is to stay perfectly calm when that happens. I am good at my job. What I was not good at, for a very long time, was staying calm for myself. I was only calm for other people. And the people in my own home had figured that out long before I did. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this really started. I have been a respiratory therapist for 9 years. Night shifts mostly because nights pay a little more per hour, and when you are a single mom raising a little girl on one income with a mortgage in Austin, every single extra dollar matters in ways that are hard to explain to anyone who hasn't lived it. I packed my lunch in the same worn-out blue cooler for 4 straight years. I drove a 10-year-old Civic with a busted side mirror and told myself the car payment I didn't have was going into savings. I clipped coupons while my daughter Zoe slept. Zoe was 5 when the savings finally became something real, a 3-bedroom brick house on Clover Ridge Drive. Crooked porch light, kitchen from about 2003, a backyard with one stubborn oak tree that dropped acorns everywhere. It was mine. One name on that deed, Sarah Lynn Callahan. I sat on the bare living room floor the night I got the keys and just broke down. Happy tears. Kind you cry when something finally goes right after so many years of white-knuckling it. The second week we moved in, Zoe tugged on my sleeve and asked, "Mama, can my ceiling be outer space?" So we drove to the craft store, bought glow paint, a pack of stick-on stars, and a foam brush, and we spent an entire Saturday on a stepladder making up our own constellations. Zoe named one after our goldfish, Captain Crunch. She named the biggest, brightest one after me. "That's the mama star," she told me very seriously. "The one everything else goes around." When we switched the lights off, the whole ceiling pulsed soft and blue, and she would whisper goodnight to each star before she fell asleep. That was the room. That was the sky we built. And everything that followed came down to what happened to that ceiling. 3 years before Clover Ridge, my dad had open-heart surgery. He survived, thank God, but the recovery was long and hard and expensive, and my mom called asking if they could stay with me for just a little while. Just until your father gets back on his feet. My younger sister Kayla was between apartments. She was always between apartments, so she came too. 'Cause Kayla always came too. Just until. I want you to really hear those 2 words. They are the most expensive words a family member can say to you. Dad did get back on his feet. And then he got back into the recliner. 3 years passed. Nobody mentioned leaving. By the time I closed on Clover Ridge, my parents and my sister simply flowed into my new house the way water fills whatever space you give it. I let it happen because I was exhausted and busy keeping a little girl alive and loved, and I didn't have energy left over for confrontation. That was mistake number 1. Here is how a house stops being yours without anyone putting a single thing in writing. Start small. My mom, her name is Linda, rearranged my kitchen cabinets the first week so her coffee mugs were up front. Then her calendar went on the fridge. Then my dad Gerald claimed the big armchair in the living room and we all learned not to sit in it. 2 years in, my mom had a word she reached for constantly. That word was family. We don't keep score in this family. We share in this family. We make decisions as a family. She said it the way some people say a prayer, like saying it loud enough would make it true. And I let her say it because I was walking through the door after 13 hours of keeping people's lungs working, and I didn't have it in me to argue about coffee mugs. Now Kayla. My sister was 27 and chasing a dream she called Glow and Gather, a home decor brand she was building from scratch on social media. She had a ring light, a gimbal, a Bluetooth mic, and about 600 followers, 3 of whom were our mom's book club friends. She filmed herself styling shelves and talking about the energy of a well-lit room. She wandered through my house with her phone tilted sideways, the way someone looks at real estate they're thinking about buying. She needed, she always said, a real space to film. Good natural light. A door that closes. And every single time she said it, her eyes drifted down that hallway. My dad Gerald had basically become a quiet fixture in the corner of every room, present in body, absent in every other way. He watched sports. He let my mom speak for him. He was there but not there, and I stopped expecting anything different. I told myself every week that this was all temporary. I told myself that for 3 years. Tuesday that started everything, we had enchiladas for dinner. I remember that because the normal of it, the plain Tuesday normalness of enchiladas, makes everything that came after feel even more shocking. Kayla set down her fork midway through and announced it like a news update. I've been thinking seriously about the studio thing. My mom nodded before the sentence was even finished. Kind of nod that tells you the conversation already happened without you in it. I just need one good room, Kayla said, spreading her palms open like she was being completely reasonable. Somewhere with real light and a door. Somewhere I can actually build this thing out. And her eyes did what they always did, slid down the hallway toward the only door in this house that mattered to me. That's Zoe's room. My voice came out flat and dry. She's barely in there during the day, Kayla said. It's a lot of square footage for one little kid. Zoe was right there at the table building a tower out of a rolled-up napkin, pretending she wasn't listening. Kids always listen. They absorb everything. She's 7, I said. She's supposed to be at school during the day. My mom folded her napkin into a neat little square. She always does that right before she says something that's already been decided without you. Nobody is making any decisions tonight. We're just talking. As a family. There was that word. The answer is no, I said plainly. It's her room. Kayla rolled her eyes and looked at my mom. And my mom gave her this tiny, patient smile. The smile said, "Don't worry." The smile said, "I'll handle it." The smile said, "She always folds." I was running on about 4 hours of sleep and I didn't catch what that smile meant. I should have. That night I tucked Zoe in and she looked up at our stars and asked, "Can we add Orion next time?" The real one. Every star you want, baby. I promise. She was out in 5 minutes. I kissed the top of her head and packed my bag for the double shift I had in the morning, the kind where you leave before your kid wakes up and come home after she's already asleep. I hated those days. But the mortgage didn't care how I felt about it. I remember looking at the house in my rearview mirror at 6 in the morning, pulling out in the dark. Every light off. My whole world inside those quiet walls. By noon, my locker was going off like a fire alarm. I couldn't get to it. I had a 19-year-old in acute respiratory distress and her oxygen numbers were moving in directions they should not move, and when that happens there is no such thing as checking your phone. You work. You breathe so your patient can breathe. You are the still center of a spinning room and everything else can wait. 3 missed calls from my mom. 2 texts from Kayla. 1 voicemail from a number I didn't know. I told myself it could wait 1 more hour. That hour cost me. We brought the teenager back. And then I stood against the supply station wall with that particular fine trembling in my hands, the kind you get when the adrenaline finally starts to fade and you realize you just did something hard and it worked. I've always been proud of that steadiness. It's the one thing I've never doubted about myself. My coworker Jamie found me there. We've worked together for 6 years. She is one of those people who shows up with exactly what you need before you know you need it. In this case, a protein bar from her pocket and a look that said she already knew something was wrong. "Your locker's been going off," she said. "My family." Something about a room. She'd heard the whole saga in pieces over the past year. She raised an eyebrow. "The sister with the content brand?" "Yeah." She just looked at me. "Sarah, you already know what this is." I didn't answer. But something in my chest started to go very cold and very still, and not in a scared way. In a decided way. When I called my mom back on a break, I got voicemail. Same with Kayla. The unknown number was my next-door neighbor, Ms. Dorothy Ruiz, who'd left me a gentle, carefully worded message that basically translated to, "I don't want to alarm you, but some furniture has been moving out of your house today." I finished the shift. I told myself there was some explanation. I pulled into my own driveway at 9:45 that night. Every light in the house was on. I could smell fresh paint through the front door before I even opened it. I walked down the hall. I stopped in Zoe's doorway. The bed was gone. The dresser was gone. Half the ceiling, our sky, our painted constellations, the stars we'd named and whispered to, was smothered under gray primer. The stick-on stars had been yanked off in a rush, and where they'd been, the paint underneath had torn away, leaving ghost outlines. Little star-shaped scars on a gray ceiling. Kayla was on her knees in the middle of the room, sealing a cardboard box with a tape gun. The box had ZOE written across it in black marker. A ring light stood glowing cold and white in the corner like it already lived there. 4 words. Very quiet. "Where is my daughter?" Not a question. Anyone who knows me knows that the quieter I get, the more serious things are. My mom Linda appeared behind me in the hallway, arms crossed, chin up. "She's with her father. She's fine." Ryan, Zoe's dad, and I had been separated for 4 years. He loved Zoe in his way, but his way was mostly from a distance. He saw her maybe 5 or 6 times a year, usually for a few hours, and the visits had been getting shorter, not longer. He was not a mean person. He was just someone who had not figured out yet how to show up. "We discussed it," my mom continued. "The 3 of us. We made a call." "When did she leave?" "Right after school. Ryan came and got her." "Did you reach me?" "We tried. You weren't picking up." She said it like a working mother in a trauma bay who can't grab her phone is the one being unreasonable. "What did you tell Ryan?" A pause. Small but loud. "We told him you were stretched too thin and needed a few days. That you'd asked him to take her." "I never asked that." She smoothed her sleeve. "Someone had to think practically." Practically. She handed my 7-year-old off to a man who hadn't had her overnight in 8 months, on the back of a lie, so my sister could set up camera equipment in her bedroom, and called it practical thinking. I picked Peanut, Zoe's stuffed elephant, out of the half-packed box. I set my keys on the windowsill. I walked to my car. Ryan answered on the second ring. I could hear his TV in the background. And underneath it, a specific quiet that clenched something in my chest, because Zoe, when she's comfortable and safe, doesn't stop talking. She narrates everything. She does commentary on her own thoughts. Silence from that child is a warning signal. "Hey, Sarah. I was actually about to call you. Tell me exactly what my mom said to you." He sighed the sigh of a man who already knew he'd been played. "She called me this morning. Said you were burned out, overwhelmed, asked if I could take Zoe for a couple days. Made it sound like you'd set it up." A pause. "I should have called you to confirm. That's on me." But she was convincing. His voice dropped. "Zoe cried the whole drive, Sarah. She kept asking when you were coming." I pressed my eyes shut. Breathed slow. "You were lied to," I said. "I'm coming right now." "Of course. I'm Sarah, I love her. But I'm not ready for this. You know I'm not. I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet." At least he could say that honestly. My mom had looked at a man who had spent 4 years gently failing at fatherhood and called him a safe landing spot for my kid. Let me talk to her. Small feet. A rustling. And then Zoe's voice, wobbly in a way that broke me straight down the middle. Mama. Hey, baby. I made my voice warm as I could. I hear you're at Daddy's tonight. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Grandma put Peanut in a box. Peanut is right here with me. He's sitting on the seat. He's doing great. A small, waterlogged laugh. The best sound in the world. Are you coming for me? I'm on my way right this second. You hear me clicking my seatbelt? Clicked it next to the phone. Yeah, she said softly. Pack your backpack. Brush your teeth. I'll be there before you finish one whole episode. I promise. Okay. Mama. Her voice went small. Did I do something wrong? Is that why Grandma made me go? There are things you cannot explain to a 7-year-old honestly. You cannot say, your grandma wants your room for your aunt's content channel and decided your feelings don't count in this house. So I said the truest simple thing I had. Grandma made a mistake. Grown-ups make mistakes too, and fixing this one is my job. You did nothing wrong. Not one single thing. You sure? I'm absolutely sure. To the stars and back, baby girl. To the stars and back, she whispered. Our thing. I hung up, sat in the dark driveway with both hands on the wheel, and I let myself feel it for about 30 seconds. Not rage. Not tears. Something colder and more useful than both of those. Then I backed out and went to get my girl. Right here I want to pause because if you are the calm one in your family, if you are the person everybody leans on and nobody worries about, this part is for you. You know what it costs to be that person. You swallow things. You let things go. You tell yourself that keeping the peace is a kind of strength. But somewhere along the way, if you're not careful, the people around you stop seeing your quiet as grace. They start seeing it as permission. They start building plans around it. I let that happen for 3 years. My own mother had my number so well that she planned an entire takeover around the simple fact that I never make a scene. If that hit somewhere real for you right now, stop for 1 second and leave a comment. Tell me what time it is and what city you're in. I want to know you're out here. And if these stories are the kind of thing that keeps you going, hit that subscribe button because I put a new one out every single week. Every week, a new story. Every week, the quiet kind of justice. Now, back to the driveway. Before I'd even fully backed out, my mom came onto the porch. She wasn't worried. She was annoyed, the way someone looks when a small inconvenience is getting in the way of their plan. Where are you going? She called across the yard. To get my daughter. Sarah, you're blowing this out of proportion. She's completely fine. She's been crying for 6 hours, Mom. My mom waved that away. Children cry over everything. You go pick her up now, you're going to confuse her. We made a sensible decision together. 3 of us. You keep using the word together like it includes me. She lifted her chin. 3 of us made this call, Sarah. You were unreachable. That's how it had to go. I had a choice in that moment. I could stand in the yard and argue in circles with a woman who had already decided she was right. Or I could do what I always do when someone is trying to pull me into a fight I didn't pick. We'll talk when I'm back, I said. And I drove away while she was still mid-sentence. The drive to Ryan's apartment was 40 minutes. I used every single one of them to think. I thought about what my mom actually had. No lease. No rent. No written agreement of any kind. She was a guest who had forgotten, somewhere in the past 3 years, that she was a guest. Belief and power look alike for a while, but they are not the same thing. I thought about what I had. A manila folder at the back of my dresser drawer with the closing papers from when I bought the house. The deed. The mortgage. The survey. I'd looked at it exactly once since signing, the night of closing, sitting on the empty floor, crying the good kind of tears. I hadn't needed it since. I kept it the way you keep a fire extinguisher. There if you need it. Hope you never do. I was starting to think I needed it. When I pulled up, Zoe was out the front door before I'd parked. She hit me so hard on the sidewalk I stumbled back. I held her there for a long time, both of us just breathing. She was shaking the small way kids shake when they've held themselves together all day and finally feel safe enough to fall apart. Ryan carried her backpack to the car without being asked. He looked guilty and relieved in equal measure. I should have verified before I just went and picked her up, he said. I knew something was off. She was convincing. I know. I meant it. This wasn't his fault. Ryan. Take her somewhere fun sometime. On purpose, not because someone guilt you into it. She'd love that. He nodded slowly. Yeah. I'm going to do better. On the drive home, Zoe fell asleep before we even hit the highway, peanut tucked under her chin. I drove with one hand and held her sock foot with the other. And by the time I pulled back onto Clover Ridge Drive, the plan had finished forming itself in the back of my head. Not a fight. I am genuinely bad at fights. What I was going to give my family was something quieter and more permanent than any argument. I was going to give them a correction. But first I had to make a phone call I'd never imagined making about my own mother. I texted Jamie one line as I carried Zoe inside. Know any real estate or family law attorneys? She texted back 11 minutes later, my cousin's wife. Sharp as a tack. Catherine Marsh. Give her everything straight and she'll know exactly what to do. I saved the number. Looked at it for a moment. Then I looked in the direction of my mom's room, where she was sleeping like a woman who had already won. We were going to find out about that. The next morning, my mom made blueberry pancakes. The universal language of someone who did something wrong and would like to be forgiven without saying sorry. Kayla scrolled her phone. My dad Gerald read the back of the syrup bottle. Zoe sat close to me and didn't eat much. Then my mom slid something across the counter while I poured coffee. A glossy bank brochure. I've been looking at some options, she said cheerfully. Did you know that with all of our incomes combined, we could refinance this place? Get everyone's name added to the title. Make this officially a family home instead of all on your shoulders. I set the coffee pot down. Refinance whose house? Our house, Sarah. She smiled. It's a lot of pressure on you having it all in your name. What if something happened to you? Where would we be? This just makes good sense. And there it was. Not just the room. The whole house. Get their names on the paper. Make the informal formal. Turn a guest situation into an ownership situation, quietly, helpfully, one signature at a time. I listened. I nodded slowly. I said, that's interesting. Let me think about it. And inside I was making a list. Kayla mentioned her launch party. Saturday, a photographer named Devin Cumming, 2 brand collaborators, Ms. Ruiz from next door, a lifestyle blogger with a decent following who'd agreed to feature Glow and Gather. My mom was practically glowing describing it all. Company coming. A real event. If they wanted an audience, I thought I could work with that. Here is the part that changed everything. 2 days later, I came home from a shift to find Kayla's tablet sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked and glowing. She'd run out to grab supplies and left it charging. The screen was open to a group chat. The chat was named Clover Ridge Fam, little house emoji and everything. I was not in it. My mom was in it. My dad was in it. Kayla was in it. Even my Aunt Carol in Tennessee was in it. Every member of my family with Callahan in their name, except the one whose name was on the mortgage. I stood at the counter and I read 6 weeks of messages. 6 weeks. The spaghetti dinner, that Tuesday they'd acted like they were just floating an idea, That had happened 3 days before the scroll ended. Planning had started 6 weeks before that. My mom had written, plain as daylight, "We just present it as a family vote. She won't push back against all of us. She never causes a scene. She never causes a scene." She knew me. She had studied me the way you study something you intend to use. My silence wasn't generosity to her. It wasn't grace. It was a gap in the fence she had been planning to walk through for 6 weeks. There was more. My mom had taken a photo of a document on the kitchen counter and sent it to the group. Quitclaim deed form. Half filled out, my name in the transfer line. A handwritten sticky note in the corner of the photo that read, "Get us to sign. Tell her it's for the homeowner's insurance update." She had a script. A lie ready to go. Get me to sign over partial ownership of my house by telling me it was routine insurance paperwork. I photographed every single screen with my phone. The messages. The deed form. The sticky note. Then I put the tablet exactly where it had been, still glowing, still looking innocent. I walked to my car, sat with the windows up, and called Catherine Marsh. She was quiet while I laid it all out. I gave it to her straight, the way I give shift handoffs, facts in order, nothing extra. The house in my name alone. Mom, dad, and sister living there for 3 years, 0 rent, 0 lease, nothing in writing. The 3-person vote to relocate my daughter without my knowledge or consent. Ryan picking Zoe up on the basis of a fabricated story. The group chat. Quitclaim form. The sticky note. She asked 3 questions when I finished. Your name and your name only is on the deed and the mortgage? Only mine. None of them have ever paid rent or signed anything? Not $1. Nothing on paper. And your daughter, you have sole legal custody? Sole custody. Her father has visitation rights he uses maybe 5 or 6 times a year. I heard her pen moving. All right. Here's what I need you to understand. A family vote carries 0 legal weight. Legally, your parents and your sister are what we call licensees, people you've allowed to stay. That permission can be pulled. With proper written notice, and given that no rent or lease exists, you can require them to leave. And no grandparent on earth has the authority to decide where a custodial parent's child sleeps without permission. What they did handing her off to Ryan on a fabricated story is something I'd want a judge to know about. My voice came out smaller than I expected. So I'm not out of my mind here. You're the only adult in that house with any legal standing at all. The question is whether you want to handle this loud or handle it right. Right, I said. Always right. Then let's draw up some papers. That week I was the most agreeable version of myself anyone in that house had ever encountered. I complimented Kayla's backdrop choices. I asked my mom follow-up questions about the refinancing brochure like I was actually interested. I said please and thank you and had dinner on the table twice. I let my mom believe the cloud had passed. Meanwhile, in my car on my lunch breaks, sitting on the floor of my locked closet at night, I worked with Catherine. She drafted 3 notices to vacate, 1 for my mom, 1 for my dad, 1 for Kayla, written precisely according to Texas state law. 30 days since none of them had ever paid rent or signed a lease. On Thursday afternoon, a process server delivered them to the house while I was at work. Certified copies went out by mail with green return receipts. I watched from the kitchen window as my mom collected the mail that afternoon. I watched her flip through the stack, frown at 3 certified envelopes, and drop all of them in the little basket by the door where she put what she called junk. She didn't open them. She was so certain that nothing official could be aimed at her inside my house that she literally filed her own eviction notice under junk mail. I also filed additional custody paperwork with the family court, a formal documentation of the situation. Catherine called it covering all angles. I called it making sure this never happened again. By Friday night, I was the only person in that house who knew exactly where things stood. I tucked Zoe in on an air mattress in my room. She looked up at me and asked, Is tomorrow the day we fix everything? Tomorrow is the day, I told her. She believed me without a second of hesitation. Because I have never broken a promise to that child, not one time, and I wasn't about to start. One more thing about Friday night. 'Cause of my dad. Late, after the house went quiet, I slipped into Zoe's stripped room with a small can of glow paint and a brush. I couldn't fix everything yet, but I climbed the stepladder and painted back one star. Just one, right over where her bed used to be. So that no matter what Saturday looked like, my daughter would have at least one star to come home to. I was still on the ladder when my dad Gerald appeared in the doorway in his robe. We looked at each other in the dark. The single fresh star glowed pale and lonely on the gray ceiling between us. Your mother, he started. Stopped. Started again. She wasn't always like this. I know, Dad. He was quiet for a moment, looking at that one green star. When we lost the house back in 2009, the bank took it, you remember. Something changed in her. She decided she would never feel that helpless again. Decided that if she kept a tight enough grip on the people around her, nothing could get taken away. He swallowed. She holds too tight. I know she does. I just got tired of being the one who tells her. It was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. And for 1 second I thought he was going to say the next thing, the thing where he stood up, told my mom she had gone too far, became my dad again instead of just furniture that watched sports. He didn't. Don't make a scene tomorrow, he said quietly, and shuffled back down the hall. I looked at that lonely star on the gray ceiling. One star. That's where we start. Saturday came the way Saturdays always do, whether you're ready or not. I was up first. Coffee in the quiet kitchen, watching the sun come up orange over the neighbor's fence. Down the hall, Kayla's ring light was already glowing in Zoe's room, warming up for its debut. I went to my dresser. Bottom drawer. Plain manila folder. Inside, the deed, my name only. The mortgage, my name only. 3 copies of the notices to vacate dated Thursday. Custody documentation. And the photographs I'd printed at a drugstore, 4 pages of them, every screen from that group chat, including the image of the quitclaim form and the sticky note in the corner. I squared those papers the way I square my charts before a shift. Then I clipped my hospital work badge to my shirt, even though it was my day off. I wanted to walk into that room as exactly who I am. Sarah Callahan, respiratory therapist. Person who stays calm when rooms get loud. By 10 o'clock my small house was full of strangers being polite. Kayla had 2 brand collaborators, Jade and Melissa, both in matching linen, both with that ring-like glow about them. The photographer was a guy named Devin who kept framing shots through his fingers. A lifestyle blogger named Stacy had shown up with a full camera kit, ready to feature the Glow and Gather launch across her platform. And Ms. Dorothy Ruiz came from next door in her good blouse carrying a dish of cinnamon rolls, because that is what a good neighbor does when she's invited to something she doesn't fully understand. My mom moved through the room like a hostess at an art gallery. Hand on Kayla's shoulder. Big smiles for everyone. She was describing the family's creative new space to anyone who would listen. My dad sat in his armchair in a clean shirt, staring at his shoes. Zoe stayed close to my leg with Peanut tucked under one arm, quietly watching these adults fill up her house. There she is. My mom beamed when she spotted me. Sarah's been so behind this whole thing. We're so excited, aren't we? Here is the twist I did not expect. Devin looked at me, looked again, and said carefully, Mercy Cross Medical Center. You work nights there, right? Respiratory. I nodded. Something shifted in his face. My younger sister. About 9 months ago. She came in not breathing. They said the RT who managed her case was incredibly calm. He paused. That was you, wasn't it? The room had gone a little quieter. I don't know, I said honestly. We see a lot of patients. She described you exactly, he said softly. He didn't say anything else. He just looked at the manila folder under my arm, and then he looked at Zoe behind my leg, and something in his expression went very careful. My mom clinked a glass. Okay, everyone, should we do a little toast? To Kayla, to glow and gather, to new beginnings, and to family building something amazing together. Glasses went up. Little murmurs around the room. I did not raise mine. I stepped into the center of the room, straightened my badge, and spoke in my regular, quiet trauma unit voice. Before the toast, can I ask my mom to clarify something for our guests? The whole room turned. My mother's smile held, but her eyes went sharp. Of course, sweetheart. What is it? Earlier this week you explained how a vote was taken about this room. About my daughter's bedroom. I want to make sure I've got that story right in front of everyone here. Devin lowered his camera slightly. Jade and Melissa glanced at each other. I don't think all the details are necessary right now, my mom said smoothly, performing warmth for the crowd. I think it's actually a great story about family. I smiled at the room. Mom, tell everyone how the vote went. I watched her calculate in real time. She had never backed down in front of an audience. Not once in her entire life. The only move that fit the woman she had been performing as for 50-something years was to own it. She lifted her chin. We did take a vote. We're a close family. We make decisions together. This room was sitting there underused, and we decided it would serve the whole family better as Kayla's workspace. She turned the smile on me. Sarah was outvoted 3-1. She doesn't have veto power over every single thing just because her name is on the paperwork. Said out loud. In front of a photographer, a blogger, 2 content creators, and my next-door neighbor. Thank you, I said softly. I just wanted to make sure that was the version we're going with. I set the manila folder on the dining table and opened it. I lifted the deed the way I hold up a chest image in the hospital, not as a weapon. Just a fact. This is the deed to this house, filed at the Travis County Clerk's office 2 years ago. There is one name on this document. I let that breathe for a moment. Mine. Sarah Lynn Callahan. Nobody else. Not Linda Callahan. Not Gerald Callahan. Not Kayla. My mom laughed, a bright social laugh for the room. Well, your name is on it because you handled the paperwork. This is everyone's home. That's not how property law works, Mom. Ownership isn't about feelings, it's about what's recorded at the county clerk's office. And that document says me. She stepped toward me slightly. We don't need to do this in front of guests. You invited the guests, I said simply. You invited a photographer into my house to document a room that belongs to my 7-year-old daughter. We have exactly the audience this moment calls for. Devin was very carefully not pointing his camera at anyone. Stacy the blogger had flipped her phone face down on the coffee table and made no move toward it. Ms. Ruiz had gone very still near the bookshelf with her arms loose at her sides, the way a person stands when they realize they are a witness. You always do this, my mom said, her voice climbing. You turn everything into a legal argument, a money thing like none of us matter. I'm not finished. I reached into the folder, laid 3 envelopes in a line across the table. You got these on Thursday. Certified mail. I watched you put them in the junk basket without opening them. I picked one up. Notice to vacate. 30 days. 1 for you, Mom. 1 for Dad. 1 for Kayla. Color drained out of my mother's face like a monitor reading dropping in real time. You can't evict your own family, she said. The words had no weight behind them anymore. My attorney tells me I can. You've never paid rent. You never signed a lease. Under Texas law, you are guests in my home, and I am formally withdrawing the invitation. 30 days. Already filed, already served. Kayla made a sound like air going out of something. My launch, Jade, Melissa, we can still do this. This is just family stuff. They're right here, I said, not unkindly. And that was when my mom stopped performing entirely and started falling apart. After everything I gave up, her voice broke open and went raw. Jade actually took a half step back. I lost my home. The bank took it. And I held this family together with nothing while you went off to your career and your independence and your mortgage, and this is what I get? Papers served at my own daughter's house. I did not raise my voice. Please, if you take one thing from this story, see this part clearly. She got louder. I got quieter. And the quieter I got, the smaller her shouting looked inside this room. You didn't hold us together, Mom. My hands were loose at my sides. You attached yourself to the one of us who built something stable, and you called that holding the family together. Those are two completely different things. You'll regret this when you're old and you need somebody and there's nobody there. I am choosing my daughter over a slow takeover. Those are not the same as choosing a piece of paper over my mother, no matter how you tell the story later. My dad stared at the floor. He had asked me not to make a scene. He should look around, neither of us was the one making it. I reached into the folder one final time. One more thing. Since you've spent the past 6 weeks describing our family situation to the neighborhood a certain way, I glanced at Ms. Ruiz, whose eyebrows had gone very high. My mom went rigid. Sarah. Barely a whisper. Please. I found this on the group chat. I held up the printed photo so the room could see it clearly, the quitclaim deed form, half filled out, and the sticky note right there in the corner. This is a quitclaim deed. It's the form used to add someone's name to a property. My mother started filling one out 2 weeks ago. She sent a photo to the group chat about my house, the chat I was not a member of, with a note to herself that reads, "Get us to sign. Tell her it's for the homeowner's insurance update." The room made a sound. Not a gasp exactly. More like the intake of breath before the room quietly, collectively, chooses a side. Jade picked up her tote bag. "Kayla," she said carefully. "We're going to step out." "No, please, the launch," Kayla's voice cracked. "We can still do this is just..." Devin was already coiling his cable. He stopped beside me. "My sister said you were the calmest person she'd ever seen in a scary room," he said quietly. "I think I understand that now." He nodded once and walked out. The ring light in Zoe's room went dark. The whole hallway went cold and quiet. Ms. Ruiz was the last guest standing. She looked at the table, the deed, the notices, the printed screenshot. She looked at Zoe, still pressed against my leg, peanut tucked under her arm. She looked at me. "You built that child a sky," she said quietly. I used to hear her through the window counting her stars at night. She squeezed my arm once, firm and warm. "You did right." She let herself out. And then it was just us. The family, so-called. 3 people standing in the wreckage of a launch party, envelopes on the dining table, a dark ring light down the hall. My mom tried one last key in the door. Tears. Real ones. "How can you do this to me? A daughter is supposed to take care of her mother." I let her cry. A year ago I would have rushed to fix it. Tonight I waited until the worst of it passed. Then I said the thing I'd worked out on the floor of my locked closet at midnight. "Mom, I think you got so scared after you lost the house, so scared of being powerless again, that you tried to take control of something that wasn't yours to control. I understand that fear. I really do." I kept my voice soft. But that fear was never a reason to send my 7-year-old away on a lie. And it was never a reason to try to put your name on my deed without telling me. "Kayla needed the space," she said weakly. "Kayla is 27 years old. Zoe is 7. I am not going to take something from a child to give it to an adult who wants it. Not in this house. Not while I'm standing." I crouched down to Zoe's level. She looked at me with those patient brown eyes. "This is my daughter," I said, looking up at all 3 of them. She is not a negotiation. She is not a line item. Nobody in this household has a say in where she sleeps. That is finished, permanently, and if anyone tests that, there are now additional court documents that say exactly the same thing. My dad Gerald spoke for the first time. Linda. His voice was quiet and final. Sit down. It's over. My mother, who had run that house like it was a country she was the president of, looked around the empty room, the dim hallway, the papers spread across the dining table. And she had nothing left. That was the moment. The one from the title. The one I replayed 1,000 times. They went pale, all three of them, not because I screamed, not because I threatened, not because I made a scene. They went pale because the story they had been living inside, the one where they were the family and I was a vote they were allowed to win, had just been replaced quietly and completely with a stack of paper that did not care one bit about their feelings. A deed doesn't care that you're blood. A notice to vacate doesn't care that you're scared. And the law doesn't care about the word family. Without that word as a weapon, they were 3 people standing in someone else's house with 30 days to figure out where to go. The 30 days moved faster than you'd think. Kayla left within the week. Jade from the brand collab had a spare room and offered it. Kayla loaded her ring lights and fabric backdrops into a borrowed car and drove away. The Glow and Gather channel went quiet for nearly a month. A home decor brand built on the idea of peace and beauty does not survive being filmed in the middle of a property dispute. My parents took the full 30 days. My mom spent most of it not speaking to me, which honestly was its own quiet relief. The silence in that house was the cleanest thing I'd heard in years. On their last day, my mom's cousin arrived with a pickup truck. Room at her place, she said. Enough room. As they loaded the last box, my dad Gerald stopped on the porch. We looked at each other. He didn't apologize. He wasn't going to become a different person at 63. But he put his hand briefly on my shoulder and nodded. You did the right thing, Sarah. Take care of yourself, Dad. I meant every word of it. Truck pulled out. The house went quiet. Not empty. Quiet. There is a real difference between those two things, the same difference there is between a woman who stays silent because she has no choice and a woman who stays silent because she chose to. That afternoon I changed the locks. Not out of anger. Out of simple logic. The old keys went with a house that didn't exist anymore. The additional custody documentation was accepted by the court without a single challenge. On paper, in ink, in a Travis County courthouse, there is now exactly one answer to the question of who decides where Zoe sleeps. No vote can touch it. Jamie came over that first free Friday with takeout and sparkling water, and we sat on my porch until the fireflies came out. She said, I knew you had it in you. I said she was the one who found me the lawyer. She shrugged. I just handed you the extinguisher. You're the one who knew how to use it. Now, if you have made it this far, I want you to drop a comment right now. Tell me your city and the time you're watching. And tell me, has someone in your life ever mistaken your patience for permission? I want to read your stories. I really do. And if this is your first time on this channel, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I post a brand new story every single week. And if this one hit close to home for you, share it with one person who needs to hear it tonight. One person who has been the calm one in a loud situation and needs to know they are not alone. The ceiling. That first free weekend, Zoe and I drove to the craft store the same way we had 2 years before. Glow paint, a fresh bag of stars, a couple of foam brushes. We primed the whole ceiling white first, let it dry, and then we put our sky back, star by star, constellation by constellation, taking our time. She named one after Captain Crunch. She named one the Mama Star again in the same spot, the biggest one. And she added a new star, low near the window, right where the morning light comes in first. What's that one called? I asked. She thought about it seriously for a moment. The Found Star, she said. Because this is home and we found our way back to it. Peanut sat on her brand new bed and supervised the whole thing. My mom called about 5 weeks later. She didn't apologize. She said she had forgiven me, which is something people say when they cannot bring themselves to say sorry. She asked when she could see Zoe. I didn't slam the door. I am not built for slamming doors. And Zoe deserves grandparents who earn their way back. You can see her here, I said. At this house with me on the day you can sit in my living room without trying to run it. She didn't love those terms. But terms are how you keep a door open and keep your dignity at the same time. It's a start. Like one painted star on a gray ceiling that isn't gray anymore. People think the strongest move is the loudest one. They're wrong. The strongest thing I ever did, I did in a completely ordinary voice at my own dining room table, with a folder full of paper in one hand and my daughter's hand in the other. There was no vote. There was a deed. And here is the lesson I carry out of that Saturday morning, the one I want to leave you with. Holding your ground is not the same as making a scene. Staying calm is not the same as staying silent. And the people who spent years confusing your kindness for weakness were simply never able to see past it to what that kindness was actually protecting. Your patience is not a green light. Your quiet is not a surrender. And your name on the door means exactly what it says. That's my story. One long shift, one stripped room, one folder on a dining table that changed everything, without a single raised voice. If it moved you, share it with someone who needs it tonight. Like this video so more people can find it. Leave a comment with your city and the time you're watching. I genuinely read every one. And subscribe to Silent Revenge because every single week there's a new story. Every week the quiet kind of justice. I'll see you in the next one.